Purdue's back home after an agonizing loss to UCLA with a huge opportunity to take down a shorthanded Illinois squad.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, folks? Happy Friday and welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We are your co-hosts. I'm Andy Patton. He is Isaac Schade, and you are joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. We want to thank all of you who have made this show your first listen or your first watch of the day. And of course, give a special shout out to those everyday listeners and those of you who've been hanging out with us in the Locked On College Basketball Discord community. Isaac, we got a ton of great games to get to this weekend. As always, hopefully not too many of those games are impacted by the weather, although we do expect at least some game time changes. Already seen a few of those, and certainly could be more as we keep an eye on that. But I want to talk about the couple of undefeated teams, the trio of undefeated teams playing, two of them playing on Friday, two ranked teams playing on Friday, 22 ranked teams playing on Saturday. We got a lot of great basketball to get to. We got a couple of ranked on ranked matchups to talk about in this first segment as well. And because we're recording this on Thursday early afternoon, we are going to do our Thursday link, our jinx, with apologies to Wisconsin, who is playing Penn State tonight. You all know the result of that game. I suspect Wisconsin's going to win, but that's why we call it a Thursday jinx. If they don't, apologies to all of you Badger fans.
I will not apologize. I'm done apologizing for the jinx, Andy.
Fair enough. No apologies necessary. Congrats to Penn State getting that W there.
They're going to finish what they couldn't finish against Michigan.
Yes. They
you know, hopefully a better possession. They would deserve that. I nothing Penn State. I don't love or hate them, but that possession haunts my nightmares.
Yes, as it should. Let's stay in the Big Ten and talk about a slightly more interesting matchup going on this weekend. Number 11, Illinois on the road, taking on number 4, Purdue. This game's on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern time on Fox. No FanDuel line as we're recording this, but KenPom favors Purdue by just 3. And Isaac, the big storyline here, this is going to be a pissed off Purdue team after that loss in Hollywood to UCLA. They're coming back home, guns ablazing, ready to take down an Illinois team that is still kind of reeling from the loss of Kylan Boswell, who's going to be out for about a month with a broken hand. They did not have Boswell in their most recent game. However, that was against Maryland. So it's, with respect to Maryland, it feels like kind of a bye game at this point in the Big Ten. Illinois won that one pretty handily, but this is going to be a much tougher task for the Illini against that phenomenal Purdue backcourt of Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer, having to square off against them without Boswell, who's really not only been this team's leading scorer or second leading scorer this year, he's also excellent on the defensive end of the floor. To me, that feels like the bigger part of the loss for Illinois in this matchup in particular.
Yeah, Andy, by the way, shouts to our good buddy Kylan Mills, who was on the sideline call for that UCLA upset of Purdue the other day. Honestly, Andy, here's why Purdue is most upset right now. You know what else happened after that loss to UCLA? They went from number 1 to number 2 in KenPom offensive efficiency. Do you know, Mr. Patton, I quiz you hereby, who is now number 1 KenPom offensive efficiency?
I will say Arizona.
You would be wrong. You should probably say the team that they're playing that we're talking about right now.
Oh, is it Illinois?
It's Illinois. They're out here trying to get back their trophy atop the pile of offensive efficiency. No, dude. So what that means, this matchup are the top 2 teams in offensive efficiency at KenPom. That elates me so much because I love to see good offense. I love a good defense too. I love a good pitcher's duel, whatever you want to say. But Andy, to your very good point, I think with Boswell's absence, I think that opens the door even more for Braden Smith to just come out and do whatever the crap he wants to do. Now, that said, Illinois, what you don't have if you're Purdue is but one game of tape on how Illinois is going to operate without Kylan Boswell. And as you said, that was against a Maryland team that is a 20-point underdog at KenPom this week. And good grief. And so what Matt Painter and company got to figure out is, how is Coach Underwood going to operate in this? I think you and I maybe thought that we might see some more Petrovic. No, he doesn't step into it. Instead, it's Keaton Wagler comes in, doesn't have a great shooting night against the Terps, but my man handed out 8 assists to 0 turnovers, while Stojakovic went and gave him 30. Yeah. And if he's going to do that, and they're going to have the balance with the Ivasic's and all of this stuff, man, I think Illinois could give Purdue some fits. I do ultimately think Purdue is going to win here at home, but I expect a really good matchup despite the Boswell absence. Andy, what about you? What do you think is going to?
The main thing I'll add on that, to me, what I'm curious about, Braden Smith so often lately has had really good second halves, but has been either deferential in the first half or just hasn't really gotten going. He's not hunting for his own shot. They're relying more on TKR and Clough and Loyer, who's been frankly inconsistent as an offensive performer this year. And to me, in this game without Boswell, I think Smith needs to go to work right away. Like, I don't want to, if I'm a Purdue fan, I don't want to see him kind of letting the game come to him and sort of feeling it out early. Like, go attack, go get your looks, go kind of impose your will on this game. You're one of the 5 best players in the country. And yet we've seen him sort of not be as aggressive as I think he's capable of being. And in this matchup against this team without that player, like, I think that's a game you have to go after it. So that's what I'm going to be looking for in this game. As for a prediction, give me Purdue at home. I think if they were on the road, I'd probably call this much more of a toss-up. I still think it's going to be a close game, but I think ultimately Purdue wins. I think it'll end up being by like 6-8 points, something like that. Maybe a game that's close until about the final minute, and then Purdue pulls away with free throws kind of thing. But I think this will be one of the more exciting, if not the most exciting game of the weekend.
By the way, Jake Davis is in his beautiful head of lettuce is who was inserted into the starting lineup for Boswell. I'm actually trying to look back. I forgot to check what he did as part of the starting lineup. 4 of 6 from the field, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, no turnovers. So, hey, if Coach Underwood can get, it's solid, right? It's not wild. It's not going to stand out, but we'll certainly take it. Andy, here's also a key for Purdue. With apologies to the Loyer family, our man got to step up and knock down some shots. Struggled at UCLA. I think that's a big key. Shall we move to the Big 12?
Yes, let's do it.
Number 6, Houston at number 12, Texas Tech, Saturday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Ken Palm has it, Andy. The Red Raiders -1. We've seen Texas Tech really starting to come into it recently. Had a nice game midweek here where they knocked off Baylor in Waco 92-73. Chris Anderson was the story of that game, man. It was crazy stuff. Andy, I know you covered that earlier in the week. How do you see this game playing out? What are the key things that will determine the champion in Lubbock, Texas?
It's so funny. There was so much conversation early in the year about Houston, some concern about them. They're not blowing out teams as much as they typically do, took overtime to beat Syracuse, struggled. It kind of didn't look very good against Notre Dame in their final game of the Players Era Festival, and had some other games that weren't super pretty yet. Here they are, 17-1 on the year. They're 5-0 in the Big 12. They already have a win over Texas Tech. Like, they have done phenomenal stuff this season. Just a kind of a ho-hum year for Kelvin Sampson and the Cougs, continuing to deliver every single night. But Texas Tech has looked really, really good as of late. Like you mentioned, they had that win over Duke, which really helped them. They've played really well earlier this week as well. Like you said, I'm really intrigued by this matchup too. I mean, you're talking about a top 15 offense in Texas Tech versus top 5 defense in Houston. And on the flip side, it's a top 20 Houston offense, top 30 Texas Tech defense. Both these teams are phenomenal for a reason. I think there's going to be a really fun matchups in the front court. I'm excited to see what JT Toppin does offensively against Houston and JoJo Tugler and Cenac and that front court for the Cougs. But then obviously the point guard battle between I know he's a sophomore, but a young sophomore in Christian Anderson, and the development that we have seen from him as a scorer, as a facilitator, him taking over and basically single-handedly beating Duke, versus Kingston Flemings, one of the big surprise breakout freshmen in college basketball. We talked about probably the biggest breakout in Keaton Wagler. Flemings is probably next on that list. He was expected to be the third best freshman on this team, and he has been one of the best freshmen in the country. That matchup, more than anything else, I think will be the determiner in this game. I like the momentum Texas Tech has. I like that they're at home. I like that they're a little pissed off after losing to this team earlier. I think they're going to end Houston's undefeated streak in conference play, hand them their first loss since late November. I think Texas Tech wins this one.
I like that, Andy. Yeah, this was a 4-point win for Houston at home. By the way, as I think about it, won't we see, wouldn't it be like Tugler on the one Watts and Cenac on Toppin? Wouldn't it be that way?
Yeah, I'm curious what Houston will do. I frankly don't know enough about how good Cenac is defensively, but I do think that there's a chance they'll probably rotate guys on Toppin just because they probably need to throw different looks at him in order to slow him down.
One of the things that's intriguing to me, Andy, is we go back to that Baylor game. You know, we've talked multiple times lately about how important Watts is as that third scoring piece, and he had a fine game against Baylor. I think 13 points, was really efficient from the field, but it was Donovan Atwell that stepped up as the third scorer. Can he do that? That battle with he and Milo Suzon at the 3 is really intriguing to me as well, Andy. So a lot storylines within this one on Saturday should be fun. Oh, I need to make a pick. Gosh. I hate to double up with you, but I like Tech at home as well. I don't think any less of Houston. I think these are two great teams, but man, give me the Red Raiders by 2.
All right. I'll take them by 3 just so we're not exactly in the same spot, but that's about where I had this game as well. Isaac, one more ranked on ranked game this weekend, North Carolina. Going on the road, not quite as far as their last road trip all the way out to the West Coast. This time they're just going to Charlottesville to take on Virginia. It's number 22 Carolina versus number 14 Virginia, Saturday, 2 p.m. on ESPN. The game has been updated to noon, actually, on ESPN2, after the weather. So like we said, there has already been a change to the schedule because of the weather-related situation on the East Coast. So this game, noon Eastern, ESPN2. KenPom favors the Cavs by 9. The defense for North Carolina has been a big issue, specifically in terms of defending the perimeter. A lot of good scoring guards for this Virginia team. And they have a front court that is more capable of matching up with North Carolina's bigs of Vasar and Wilson than I think most other teams that UNC will face this year. I think that makes it a challenging matchup for North Carolina, especially on the road.
And man, North Carolina 0-3 on the road in ACC play. Meanwhile, Virginia, who we thought would be good, but maybe not this good, Andy, for me, is the second best team in the ACC right now. They've already won at NC State, at Louisville, at SMU. And so this is a chance to knock off yet another one of the teams that we thought would challenge for that top 2 or 3 and continue to cement themselves right behind Duke in the ACC upper echelon. We'll see how it goes. Man, Ryan Odom really, really doing it, Andy. And by the way, I'll just remind people every time I talk about this Virginia team, this is not your Tony Bennett Cavs. This team has scored 80 or more in like 13 of their 18. They've scored at least 70 in every game. It's really just retrain your brain when you think Virginia. Andy, 7 ranked teams are playing unranked teams on the road this weekend. As we often do, we want to look at that and say, who's on upset alert on the road in conference play? Because it's more difficult than you think. We'll tell you who and why coming up in just a second. And we'll do that right after I tell you about FanDuel, who is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action. Because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for you right inside the app. What you do is each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts that you can apply to the bets you like the most. You just open that pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply to your bets. The boost lets you lean into your game day instincts. Maybe you're riding some momentum or a defense or some quarterback play or coaching, whatever it is. Every play feels bigger, and the boosts make your bets feel that way too. You make your picks, then you apply your profit boosts to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. How about Michigan against Ohio in Ann Arbor? The Wolverines 15.5-point favorites. I don't know. Maybe you think the Buckeyes can stay within those points, or maybe you think Michigan gets back to those early season ways of winning by 87 points. We'll see what happens. Check it out. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thanks so much for making Locked On College Basketball your first listen or watch of the day, and making Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network out there. It's incredible, and it's all because of you, all our great community and friends who dive in with us every single day. If you want to do that even more, check out the brand new Everydayers Club, where you get a daily newsletter, 15% discount to the Locked On merch store, and more. Check out the link in the show notes, lockedoncollegebasketball.supercast.com. Andy, we said it a second ago. There are 7 ranked teams on the road at unranked teams. I want to ask you, who of them is on upset alert? Let me just quickly read through them. I'll just give you the games, not the tip times and all that madness. Number 24, St. Louis at St. Bonaventure. Number 7, Nebraska at Minnesota, still undefeated, by the way. Number 18, Clemson, coming off that loss at home to NC State at Georgia Tech. Number 21, UGA at Texas. Number 9, Iowa State at Oklahoma State. Number 15, Vandy at Mississippi State, trying to stop their 3-game skid. What on earth? And Andy, number 19, Kansas on the road at K-State. Oh my. That one ain't playing out maybe the way some of those have played out earlier in the Jerome Tang era. Andy, who of those 7 are on upset alert? What you got?
Well, so I actually think that the ranked teams are going to go undefeated here. I'm going to call my shot on this. That is unlikely to actually happen, just in the sense that these conference road games are hard, and we know that these games are hard, and that we often see teams lose games that we're not expecting them to lose. Again, we don't have FanDuel lines for any of these games outside of St. Louis at St. Bonaventure, which the Billikens are favored by 8.5 in that game. But KenPom favors all of the ranked teams with the exception of Georgia at Texas. KenPom has that game in favor of the Longhorns by just 1. That is probably the most likely upset here.
Sure.
With the exception, I mean, like, I don't know that would actually be that much of an upset. Like, I know Georgia's ranked and Texas is not. Those two teams are very even. Texas has picked up bigger wins than this game would be. They're at home. I don't really think that would even qualify as an upset. If Texas were to win that basketball game, I suspect that the FanDuel lines will also be in favor of Texas. But I'm going to say it, like, there are teams that are on upset watch. Don't get me wrong. Iowa State has been questionable as of late. Should they lose to Oklahoma State? No, they should not lose to Oklahoma State. But could they? Yeah. Kansas at Kansas State is always a weird game. It is always a weird game, and I wouldn't be surprised if something goofy happens, if PJ Haggerty scores 40, if Kansas maybe doesn't get a second half from Darren Peterson, which is not that surprising or goofy. That has happened a couple of times this year already. I think that could absolutely happen. Heck, I am a little bit concerned about Clemson after their loss to NC State. Should they lose to Georgia Tech? No, but Damon Stoudemire has picked up bigger wins than this and challenged Duke earlier this year. I could see that happening. I think the teams I have most on upset watch would probably be Georgia, followed by Clemson, followed by, I guess, Oklahoma or Iowa State, just because I don't see Vandy losing to Mississippi State. I don't see Nebraska losing to Minnesota. I don't see the St. Bonaventure is not good. I don't see that one for St. Louis, and maybe Kansas at Kansas State, but that would surprise me as well. But honestly, I kind of think that this is a weekend where we don't get any of these fun upsets, and the ranked teams just go in and take care of business.
You know what that means, of course, don't you, Andy?
That it's going to be like 5 of these teams are going to lose.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
Yep.
No, yep. Andy, I like this conversation about Georgia at Texas.
Yeah.
Been paying attention to Georgia. They play with the fastest adjusted tempo at KenPom. They score an approximate crap ton of points. Jeremiah Wilkinson is having an absolute year in Athens. The Dogs right now are coming off of back-to-back wins at home against Arkansas, on the road at Mizzou. Andy, they've only got 3 losses. 2 of them are in overtime. That's Clemson on a neutral and home to Ole Miss. You don't want to lose that game. They did. And then their only other loss is at Florida, who's playing much, much better right now. And as for Texas, look, I know they had that Bama and the Vandy win, but then they have back-to-back losses to A&M and Texas. They are Texas to Kentucky. And so I'm with you. I do think the FanDuel line is going to favor Texas. And so maybe it's an upset in that regard, where I think Georgia goes into Austin and gets this win here. Just that offense, I just don't see Texas slowing it down or stopping it all that much. And so I'm with you. It's hard to look at this and find a team to really say, man, they're on some upset alert. I'm going to go with Clemson, Andy, as the team that I'm most concerned about because of what you said about their inability to get things done at home against NC State earlier this week. Because of, look, Georgia Tech's not a good team, but every now and again, Coach Stoudemire has that juju that gets things going. Andy, here's a question I want to ask you, though. You know, we've got two teams on this list, one of whom is still undefeated in Nebraska at Minnesota, the other of whom was until very recently, but now Indy has lost 3 straight games at Texas, at home to Florida, and at Arkansas. Mississippi State is not the challenge that any of those 3 teams were. Is this a get-right game for Vandy, or do you now have some concern about the Fighting Mark Byingtons?
It's a little of both. I think this will end up being a get-right game for Vanderbilt. Mississippi State, outside of Josh Hubbard, they just don't have the juice to compete in this conference for the most part. I mean, I think Chris Jans is a good coach. I think we've seen him maximize talent in the handful of years that he has been with the Bulldogs. But at the same time, like I just don't think this team has enough talent on the roster to compete with a team like Vanderbilt, who is more talented and also is incredibly well coached by Byington. And yeah, this team has stumbled. And, you know, we've talked about that a little bit with Iowa State after they lost 2 games in a row. I mean, the Kansas loss was a bad loss for them in the sense that they got beat badly, but then the Cincinnati loss was worse because it's not a very good Cincinnati team that they lost to. So I think for Vandy, it's kind of a, hey, we gotta start turning this thing around. I think they'll do it. Certainly would feel more confident if they were at home because, again, as we've said a handful of times, there's no easy road trips in conference play, and certainly not in the SEC, even if Mississippi State is not among the better teams. I do think Vandy wins, and I think Vandy wins this one by a comfortable enough margin that it can really feel like a confidence boost going into next week. Maybe not by 20, but maybe by Ken Pom has it by 9. I think it'll be like a 13, 15-point win.
I was in that range.
Vandy, somewhere in that range, which you'll feel pretty good about that if you're a Commodores fan.
As for the Nebraska Cornhuskers, who are still undefeated, Andy, I think this game at Minnesota is really important where you don't want to mess around. Here's why. The Golden Gophers, you know, they'd had some moments. They had that 5-game winning streak where they wrapped it up beating Iowa. But Andy, since then, they've lost 4 straight. And then on the Nebraska side of it is you got to get this win because here's the stretch after Minnesota. Andy, you ready for this? Yeah. At Michigan next Tuesday, hosting Illinois, then you go to Rutgers, and then you host Purdue. Thankfully, some of those are at home. But, dude, that is a crazy schedule for Nebraska that almost certainly they take their first loss, maybe a couple in that span. That said, do not mess around at Minnesota this weekend if you're the Cornhuskers.
Yeah, you can't look ahead. I mean, it's so easy to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a road game. Again, it's hard to – it's easier to look past a game when you're at home. I think it's harder to do when you're on the road. Cade Tyson could make this thing interesting for Minnesota the way he has played. He's been a little bit less consistent as of late, but certainly a bucket for that team. But I think Nebraska does win this one. But yeah, I as much as I don't want to bet against the Cornhuskers this year because it's burned me before, that 4-game stretch coming up after this, 3 of those games are going to be really tough. And so we'll see if they can at least take 2 of them. 1 loss out of those 4 would be an incredible result for Nebraska. Even 2-2 wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for Nebraska with what they have done so far this year.
Andy, here would be the cruel irony very quickly.
Yeah.
Can you?
If Rutgers is the first loss,
they're going to go to Ann Arbor and beat Michigan.
Yep.
They're going to knock off Illinois. They're going to lose at Rutgers before beating Purdue.
Yep. That's going to, 3-1 in that stretch. Again, you tell a Nebraska fan they're going 3-1 in that stretch, they're going to take it. But if you tell them what happened, it's like, great, we got 3 quad 1 wins. That's incredible. But we lost.
That would be the most hilarious outcome of that whole thing.
I love it. I'm going to ask you one more question before we move on to the rest of our games on the schedule. Who is going to score more points in the Kansas State game between PJ Haggerty and Darren Peterson?
Haggerty.
Yep. Is it because you think Peterson's not going to play, or what's the?
No. I think that DP is going to play in this game. I just think that similar to what you said about Josh Hubbard earlier, K-State just doesn't have much outside of Haggerty. He's up to. I was just looking at it earlier today. I forget. He's up to 3rd or 4th in the nation in scoring, as you would expect. but DP has more around him. And I think he's played enough games now, right? Where we've heard Bill Self say DP doesn't know how to play with our guys and our guys don't know how to play with. That was a couple weeks ago. I think they're starting to figure each other out a little bit more now. And so you see Trey White still able to operate. You see Melvin Council Jr. still able to operate. And so I think PJ scores more because he has to, is my answer.
I think
in a losing effort, Kansas is going to win this game.
I'm totally with you. Kansas wins. DP gets the W. Haggerty gets the scoring title in this game. I think that's a very fair assessment.
That's a great question, though. I love that question.
That's going to happen. Let's move on, folks. We got a really intriguing matchup, not just for the play on the court, but for the fact that a unique player might be suiting up in this one. Tennessee heading to Tuscaloosa to take on Alabama. That is allegedly going to have Charles Bediako on the floor. I'm sure Rick Barnes is thrilled that he has to game plan against a guy who signed 3 NBA contracts. We're going to talk about that and what it means for this game, as well as a handful of other games going on this weekend. All that coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax's full service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from start to finish without all the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online. They can handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every deduction possible. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it for you. And for a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, folks, we got a handful of other basketball games to get to this week. And I say handful, there's way more that we could talk about, but we're going to focus on a few of them. Before we get to that, though, we do want to share a note quickly. Bill Self does plan to be back on the sideline on Saturday night for that Kansas State game. He missed that game against Colorado. That trip to Boulder, dealing with some health issues for him, so took a little break, but plans to be back for this one. Wasn't able to give an update on Darren Peterson's ankle, so we'll see. Again, that's still up in the air as of now. But Isaac, I want to move on to an SEC game that would have been one of our kind of main talking points, regardless of the recent situation. It's Tennessee, who is now not in the top 25, ended a 90-week streak, I think it was, of being ranked in the top 25.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a one of the longest streaks, if not the longest streak in program history, but they've been stumbling as of late. So fall out. They got a great opportunity to get back in the top 25 on the road in Tuscaloosa against number 17 Alabama. This game is at Saturday at 8:30 Eastern time on ESPN. Again, no FanDuel line. KenPom favors Bama by 4, and I suspect, or I'm not sure if KenPom, I know FanDuel will take into account the recent news. Don't know if KenPom does, but it sounds like Charles Bediako, who last suited up for Alabama in the 22-23 season, where he was the starting center on a team that earned the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, he's back. He was unhappy with the fact that he never made the NBA after a couple of years. And because his 5-year window is he's still within that 5-year window because he never played in the NBA, I guess he has been able to get a temporary restraining order where he will be able to suit up for Alabama this weekend on Saturday against Tennessee. There will be a full court case on the 27th to determine if he is able to stay eligible for the rest of the season or not. It is an insane, unique, wild situation in a year where we've already seen G Leaguers start playing in college basketball. We've seen more 22-year-old international players playing college basketball. And we saw our first ever draft pick play college basketball in James Najee, although he had never signed an NBA contract. And now it appears, at least according to Jeff Goodman of Field of 68, that Alabama coach Nate Oates plans to play Bediako on Saturday. Again, I don't think they would have gone through all this trouble to find a judge in Alabama who, according to reports, also is a donor to Alabama, to find somebody who would get them that TRO and put them on the floor. They wouldn't do that if they weren't planning to play Bediako. The front court's been an issue for Alabama. Bediako is a tremendous defensive player. This is an insane addition to this roster at this time. A wild story that makes it an already interesting game even more interesting on Saturday.
Yeah, and Andy, I think it's good to be able to say that, to update, what Deshaun and I had talked about on the Thursday show of like, hey, do you run the risk if you play Bediako of if Tuesday overturns this TRO, do you risk forfeiting this game? And as you pointed out in some of our texting back and forth earlier, part of the TRO is that it I guess I'll use the word indemnifies them from that possibility.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like that is not going to be a concern. And so there is that angle of it. Andy, one of my concerns is, I can't remember if I've used this analogy before, but have you ever seen the movie Miracle about the USA hockey team that beat? Yeah, right. You're a good American, as am I. One of the things that happen as they're going through some of their exhibition games is Coach Herb Brooks brings in this dude that didn't make the team, but he's, I'm going to say, balling out, because I don't know what hockey players call that, in the NCAA ranks, to play with them. And he has a great game. And then after the game, some of the players, some of the team leaders are waiting for him by the bus. And the assistant coach says, hey, these guys want to talk to you. And they basically tell him, hey, look, he's great, but we don't want him. And he says, why? And the guy, I wish I could remember the player's name, says, because we're a family.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much of that type of thing is at play here. Bringing in Bediako in the middle of the season, obviously it's not a new program to him, so he knows the verbiage, he knows the systems, he knows all of that. But Andy, my big question is, how does this affect chemistry? Not only if I'm Rick Barnes, am I pissed, but if I'm Aiden Sherrill, I'm like, what am I? If I'm Taylor Bobo, I get it. We're trying to do everything we can to win, but how does this affect team dynamics is my big question mark.
Yeah, that's a great question. And also I would have probably gone with the Ted Lasso reference for the Zava edition.
Oh, nice.
I like the Miracle example too. We got two examples we can use here. So for the hockey and soccer family out there who listen to a college basketball podcast, we got it all covered for you. No, I think that's a great question. And I think that's an interesting element of this as well. It kind of depends on Bediako's attitude coming in. Does he come in kind of with the kind of like, confidence of like, I've been here before, this is going to be easy for me? Because if he's bringing that energy, people are really not going to like that. But if he's bringing a, hey, I'm so happy to be here, I just want to help the team kind of energy, and I'm not going to pretend to know enough about him personally to be able to make an assertion on how he's feeling about this. I mean, I do have some level of respect for him and his lawyers for straight up saying like, Bediako regrets his decision to leave early. Like, I think you have to kind of admit that in this circumstance, because it's very clearly the truth. But I think that there is at least a sign of some humility, which hopefully will not create any issues for Alabama. But I also will say, before we move on to some of the other games here, like Nate Oates made a big deal after the James Najee edition for Baylor, and basically saying, I was a former high school coach, which he loves to bring that up. And he says, I was a former high school coach, and like, I just don't like that these kind of additions are taking away opportunities for high school players in college basketball. To make that statement a few weeks ago and then turn around and do this, it doesn't look great. It doesn't look great for Coach Oates. He's going to get grilled about this. I'm curious to see how he responds. We know that he's doing this because he wants to win basketball games. That's not a secret. It's not even really like a malicious intent. Like, I get it, but it doesn't really jive with his previous comments. And I think you got to answer for that. I think you got to be able to explain why you're doing that. And if the explanation is just, well, we had an opportunity to bring in a player that's going to help us win games, it's kind of a crappy explanation, but at least it's honest. Like, at least in that case, he would be being honest if that's what he said. Very interested to see how this plays out. Kind of wish that Bediako's first game was on the road, because I have a feeling that would be not an incredibly warm welcome for whichever crowd. Also worth pointing out that Tuesday, which is the day of the court case to determine his continued eligibility, Alabama plays that night starting at 9 p.m. Eastern time at home again against Missouri. So we'll see if he's on the floor for that one.
Yeah, Andy, I mean, to your point about the road, I remember how vociferous SEC fans were when Brandon Miller was playing on the road. Like, there was that whole situation. So yeah, I'm curious to see how much does Bediako play? How effective is he? What kind of shape is he in? I'll tell you this though, we've how many times through the Nate Oates era have we talked about they're at their best when that defensive efficiency matches the offensive number? Right now, Andy, they are 64th in defense. Bediako can rocket that number up the charts if he's ready to go and effective. So we'll see what happens. And poetic justice would be Tennessee getting this victory in Tuscaloosa. Andy, we got several other games, all sorts of action going on this weekend. I'm not going to enumerate it, but one I'll mention that stands out to me is Villanova on the road at number 2 UConn Saturday afternoon, 12:30. UConn, head and shoulders best team in the Big East. I went on record earlier this week on our show saying I think they're the one team in the power conferences that can run through it undefeated.
Yep.
But for Villanova, they have a huge opportunity to not only keep themselves at pace with UConn, but to bring UConn back to the pack a little bit, because St. John still has that one loss. Creighton, I think, has 2 or 3 with sliding by on Wednesday night. They stay at 3 losses, I think. Andy, is there any hope for Villanova in this matchup?
Not much. Caden Lewis would have to go nuclear for Villanova, and Duke Brennan would have to have a great game, which he's a great rebounder, and he's a decently efficient player around the rim, but he needs to be defensively excellent to slow down UConn's front court. I don't see this happening. I think if it was flipped and it was UConn at Villanova, that's more interesting. But UConn at home, the way they've been playing, I think they're going to win this one. I think they're able to shut down a Caden Lewis. I think Terrace Reed has a monster game. I think UConn wins this one. I don't think I think it'll be like decently close, but I don't think UConn will even really look in too much danger of actually losing this one.
Yeah. Andy, quickly staying in the Big East, we got some father on son action going on. St. John's in Cincinnati to take on Xavier. Tips off at 2:30 on TNT. Johnny's -9. Patino on Patino. Can the son upset the father in a very real way?
No, I don't think so. I think St. John's wins this one. Yeah. Like I'm so intrigued to see if these teams try to do something different, if there's any kind of like uniqueness in the matchup. I mean, Richard has known his dad as a coach for his entire life. You'd think that would give him an advantage, but again, that kind of goes the other way as well. Rick literally raised Richard, so he knows what he's going to do and that kind of stuff. It's going to be fun to see how this plays out. Ultimately, talent probably wins out. St. John's got a lot more of it. Yeah,
Andy. All right. Good. A couple other things that maybe stand out. Auburn at Florida has some intrigue to it. Talking about father and son, we got Stephen Pearl heading to Tallahassee. Man, the Gators have been playing so well. Auburn they kind of now and then. We'll see what happens. Do you have any hope for the Tigers here at number 16, Florida?
I think they could do it. I don't think they will, but like if you were to tell me that like 1 or 2 of these games where the ranked team is at home that they go down, I think Auburn has one of the better chances to do it. Keyshawn Hall, Keyshawn Murphy have both been great. Todd Pettiford's been inconsistent, but if he just has one of those games, one of those nights for Auburn, I could see it happening, especially if Florida's guards struggle to shoot, which has been a big issue for them. But ultimately, Florida's front court is just too good. I think that they're going to ultimately win this one. And then you got West Virginia at Arizona is another game I wanted to mention quickly. I don't think that West Virginia pulls off the upset here, but obviously we got to talk about these undefeated teams. Arizona is still one of them. A long road trip from Morgantown all the way out to take on Arizona for the Mountaineers. I don't think they can pull it off, but I'll be keeping my eye on that one as well.
Awesome. Andy, inevitably, any number of the games we haven't even touched are going to pop and have crazy results. Can't wait to see what happens there, but it's going to be a great weekend of basketball. Everyone stay locked in. For those of you that are going to get snow, hopefully you at least keep your electricity. So it's like, I'm sorry, honey, I got to sit here and watch basketball all day, and that'll be great for us. Andy, it's literally our job, so we'll take it. You guys, thanks so much for being here with us on a Friday. Great to get to chat college hoops. As always, man, I cannot wait for another great weekend of basketball. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, do it now so you don't miss a second of the show. If you haven't checked out the brand new Everydayers Club, that link's in the show notes, as is the link for the Locked On College Basketball Discord. We'd love to see you join both in all of those groups. As always, apologies to the Loyer family. Let's go Wild Popes. 5 straight on the line here on Saturday. Wow. Cheers to the McBruins, and until Monday when we talk again. Peace.